Good afternoon. It is Sunday, October 13, 2024. It's exactly noon on the East Coast. You're watching Goldfinger Capital on YouTube. My name is Rob Sin, at CEO Technician on X, at Goldfinger on CEO.ca. And as always, we got a lot to get into today. Look at my tabs. I think I might do videos in the future with multiple screens so I can have more surface area, more screen footprint to be able to have hundreds of tabs. But anyway, here we are today with one screen. And as always, if you like this video, if you get value from it, if you like my content, if you want to be kind, give a like, subscribe to my channel, sign up for my Substack, also Goldfinger Capital. And let's get into it. So a lot to get to today. We're going to start with the macro. We're going to evolve into the micro. Junior mining will be at the end of the video. By the way, Canada is on vacation tomorrow. It's Canadian Thanksgiving on October 14th. Canada does it in October. Americans do it at the end of November. It's a weather thing. It's a seasonality thing. I wish all the Canadian viewers a wonderful Thanksgiving, a peaceful holiday. And Canada is a great country. There's a lot to be grateful for. So enjoy a day of giving thanks and eating food and watching hockey or whatever you decide to do on your Thanksgiving holiday. So let's get into it. You know, the first topic is just, it's a surreal situation, the backdrop in the world today. I mean, with what is going on with Israel and Iran, with Hezbollah, I mean, you know, the Israeli Armed Forces has executed 3 Hezbollah commanders, like the number one guy in the organization, 3 of them in the last month. Previously, this was like a red line, right? This was like unthinkable. And now they're killing them every 24 hours. Iran firing hypersonic missiles into Israel, a barrage of 200 missiles, but they didn't kill anybody, right? And Israel's bombing Iran. You know, Iran is countering Israel. It's surreal because this was previously unthinkable, right? Like if you think back like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, if somebody had said Iran and Israel are going to fire missiles and bomb one another, you would say, well, that's going to be a major Middle East war. That's going to be a huge escalation. It's going to be very negative for stocks, for the world. Oil will be $200 a barrel. And you would be wrong, right? All of the analysis that people were throwing out about this event were wrong. Same thing when Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, right? You can go back then. I mean, I got it wrong. Everybody got it wrong. Thought it would be over in 72 hours. Like the Russian military, the Russian army, second strongest army in the world. Of course, it's going to take, you know, little old Ukraine in a very short period of time. Wrong, right? You'd be wrong about it all. Also, you know, what the side effects and the consequences of that invasion were. A lot of analysts had all kinds of doomsday theories about global supply chains, the price of wheat, the price of soybeans, global shipping. There were all kinds of stuff that was thrown out in March, April 2022. That was wrong. It was all wrong analysis. They thought that the consequences would be much bigger and far-reaching than they proved to be, okay? And the pandemic same thing, right? I mean, the early analysis during the pandemic, March, April, May 2020, was all wrong. It was all wrong. Like we didn't understand what we were dealing with. We didn't understand the real mortality rates. Remember, the mortality numbers that were being thrown around early on were way inflated, heavily inflated. And also how to treat it. We treated it wrong. The medical industry, right? Like doctors, hospitals were treating it wrong. So my point of bringing all that up is just how little we know, right? So let's be humble. Let's be humble and understand that we're going to get it wrong a lot in trying forecasting the future. That there's just a lot we don't know. There's a lot that's unpredictable, right? So be humble and accept that nobody knows anything. Really, nobody knows anything. All these experts during the pandemic, they brought all the experts on. They were all wrong. When Russia invaded Ukraine, they brought on all the experts. They were all wrong. When Israel and Iran clashed and firing missiles and bombing each other, brought on the experts. They're all wrong. Okay, so that's just the point. The point I want to make is that nobody knows anything. Right? I just summarize it in one sentence. Like nobody knows anything. So in the stock market, nobody definitely knows anything. So we got new stock market highs. I mean, look at the charts. The S&P, NVIDIA. So NVIDIA had this series of lower highs it was making. Remember how many people were calling for NVIDIA to crash back in August, right? Yes, it did drop pretty sharply, but look at the rebound, and here we are back near all-time highs. So, it had a chance to crack in August, and it didn't, right? And every bottom starts with a higher low. And that was this one in early September, right? That was an important turning point for NVIDIA. The bears could not crack it back under 100. It put in place a higher low. And here we are snapping the downtrend. I don't need to draw the line. You can see the trend line. It broke back above it. It snapped the series of lower highs that it had put in place since June. So, once again, the bears get it wrong. There's a funny meme I saw where, it's like, when is the stock market going to go down, right? And then the second picture is, it's going to go down when you stop trying to short it, when you stop being bearish, right? And that's the truth. I mean, that's the truth. The bears have just gotten it. It's a tough life being a bear. They had a little moment of glory there in early August, and there was all those Twitter accounts that love posting the market crash prognostications, and they were getting all the clicks and all the attention in early August. That was a fleeting moment. That was 2 or 3 days, and here we are. I mean, look at financials. So it's borderline impossible to have a real coherent bearish thesis when the XLF chart looks like this. I mean, this is just incredible, right? Financials are working. They're working in a big way. This was a beautiful bullish consolidation throughout the month of September, and boom, Friday is a huge breakout. I mean, how many times do you see Bank of America at 5% in a single day, right? So technically speaking, the equity market looks like it's firing on all cylinders. Uber breakout, like this was also a beautiful setup. It's kind of like a cup and handle pattern here. Again, I'm not drawing any lines or doing any TM. I'm just speaking words in this video. It's unnecessary, I think, to do all that chart art. You guys get it. You're smart. It's a cup and handle breakout, and wow, look at that volume in Uber on Friday, right? And that had a lot to do with the Tesla Robotaxi event, which, as usual, was underwhelming. It got started late, which seems like it always does with Tesla events. It's never starting on time. And a lot of it was choreographed, right? You could tell that they don't have it all figured out, right? Like, we're not going to have Tesla taxis next month, right? Like autonomous Tesla taxis, right? So Uber's still around. Boom, look at that chart breakout. And Tesla was actually interesting because relative strength is an important indicator, right? And you could see that in early October, Tesla's relative strength started ticking lower. It was clearly seeing some selling throughout the first 2 weeks of October. And then boom, the Robotaxi event is kind of a disappointment, right? It's kind of didn't live up to the hype. They usually don't. All these Tesla events usually don't live up to the hype. So this one was no different. And Uber was the beneficiary. I want to talk a little bit about China. So I want to keep it as simple, like literally get the salient points from this video. One of the salient points is China stimulus barrage, right? There's a lot of bears on China, and I think actually being bullish on China is a contrarian take at this point in time. The Chinese economy has had a bad last few years. That's been a big reason why oil has been under pressure in 2024. That's a big reason why copper came under heavy pressure during the summer. The Chinese economy appears to be in deflation and actually getting deeper in deflation, right? So, and this is, by the way, I don't speak Chinese, I don't speak Mandarin, but you get it. This is PPI. This is the monthly PPI, and this is the year-over-year PPI. Negative 2.8% PPI, right? And look at the trend. Look at the trend. This is just a few months ago. Look at this. These are big deflationary month-over-month prints out of China, right? So what are the Chinese policymakers doing? Remember, it's a state-run economy. Whatever the state says happens. It's really simple in China. The Chinese Communist Party says something is happening, it happens, right? Real simple. You don't have to vote on it, don't have to go to the floor of the House of Representatives or the Senate and argue about it, or the Parliament and argue about it for 5 weeks. Nope. Whatever President Xi and the Chinese Communist Party says is going to happen, happens. Very simple. So they are stimulating. They are announcing stimulus programs every week. They have to counter this deflation. China is exporting deflation to the rest of the world, and it's a problem. It's a problem. You do not want to have an economy as large as China mired in deflation, getting deeper in deflation. It's a big problem. Part of the reason why stocks were so strong last week, I believe part of the reason why metals ticked up on Thursday and Friday, I really think it's China. Copper was under pressure early in the week, had a little rebound at the end of the week. All of these metal charts, so copper, silver, gold, and we could go on, all constructive, all in uptrends, obviously, on different time frames. Obviously, we know gold is in a bull market. We know silver is in a bull market. But it's really, look at this gold chart. And gold was under pressure early in the week, Tuesday, Wednesday. It got down to that 26.25 level, and it found support. It was under pretty heavy pressure, actually, on Tuesday. It found support, right? It looked ugly, but the dips are short-lived, so just keep it simple, stupid. This is an uptrend. That being said, I made a video last week saying that precious metals are in a correction. I still think so. I'm skeptical that gold will make a new high here in the near term, let's say the next couple of weeks. I still think we could have some messy trading throughout the rest of October. But it's a bull market, right? So it depends upon your time frame. If you're trading it hour to hour, I wouldn't chase Friday's move higher. But if you're an investor, you should be unmoved by all this. And I've been consistent The bull market is strong. You should be unmoved by the short-term gyrations, okay, in gold and silver. Copper, I think, has more torque. It has more leverage to the China stimulus trade. And it just bottomed in August. It's moving up off the bottom. It obviously got up to 480. It pulled back pretty sharply. But this looks like a nascent uptrend to me in silver. The technicals, the relative strength, it looks good to me. The MACD, the volume, everything about this chart, I like copper here. I really do. Yields are starting to lift up. Normally, copper and yields have a pretty positive correlation. You can see they're starting to have a bit of a positive correlation here, right? So I think that's also the China stimulus trade. As China stimulates and tries to counter these deflationary headwinds in their economy, it should be good for the global economy and global growth, right? At least in theory. But just purely from a stock market standpoint, just keep it simple, stupid. China is committed to a fire hose of, liquidity and stimulus in their economy. Don't fight it. Like David Tepper gets on CNBC saying he's bullish as all get out on China. Like Billionaire, who's made brilliant calls throughout his career, like he got 2008, 2009, right? He got the short, and then he got the upturn in 2009, right? Like you don't get any smarter than that. This guy's bullish on China. I'm bullish on China, right? And they held a press conference Friday night, Saturday morning, I guess, and their finance minister is hinting at increasing the deficit. So fiscal stimulus. So they've got the monetary stimulus. They already announced a bunch of monetary policy stimulus. The fiscal is what has been missing, right? It's been missing. A lot of the China bears say they have to do a fiscal stimulus. Well, he's telling you they're going to do it, right? So let's not try to outsmart ourselves. Don't fight the PBOC. Don't fight the Chinese Communist Party, right? And then Canada, getting back to our Canadians, the TSX-Venture, right? So the TSX, the big board, where the large and mega caps in Canada trade, that's making new highs. That ended on new highs on Friday, but the little beaten down, downtrodden TSX-Venture composite, where the microcaps trade, a lot of junior miners here. Look at this chart. It's looking pretty bullish. It's looking constructive. I put a post on my Substack about this. This is a bullish chart. I like this chart. And it's been hard to be positive on the TSX-Venture for a long time. The chart has generally looked dreadful, and it's generally been a bearish chart. Different this time. It's looking bullish. And then look at the weekly version of it. It obviously peaked in early 2021, and then as inflation started to run away and the Fed started tightening, it went into a pretty deep cyclical bear market at the end of 2021 into 2022, and it only bottomed in Q4 2023. So this was a 2.5-year bear market from Q1 2021 to Q4 2023, and it's just bottoming. I mean, we're barely up off the bottom. So think about that this chart now of this downtrodden microcap stock index in Canada is just beginning to potentially lift off the bottom, potentially, keyword potentially, breaking out from a multi-year, basically a 2-year head and shoulders bottom just now, as China is opening the fire hoses of stimulus, right? So let's keep it simple, stupid, and let's try to be on the right side of this trade, okay, which to me appears to be the long side. All right. We talked about yields, talked about copper, talked about gold, talked about silver. So the miners. Oh, one more thing, jobless claims. So I think that's another thing that ticked gold up on Friday. There's a few factors, obviously. It's never just one factor, but weekly jobless claims, sorry, that was Thursday morning, ticked up to 258,000 versus an estimate of 230,000. That's a big mess for weekly claims. I think this number is going to be volatile. I think the economic data is going to continue to be volatile. But I think that in recent weeks, right, the last couple of weeks, all of a sudden everybody thought, well, the non-farm payrolls number was good. It beat estimates, and the revisions were higher. So actually, everything is great economy. I think it's going to continue. The data is going to continue to show that nobody knows anything, right? So it's going to be good for a couple of weeks. Everybody thinks, oh, the Fed doesn't need to do anything. It's great. And then it's going to be bad for a couple of weeks. Oh, Fed's got to cut. Fed's got to cut 25 or 50. And it's just going to be volatile like that. It's going to make a fool of a lot of the experts and the economists. I mean, what's funny, a couple of weeks ago when they had the non-farm payrolls number, the economist from Citigroup was calling for plus 70,000, right? So this is a guy who sits in an office in New York City, makes almost $1 million a year writing about the U.S. economy. And his forecast for the NFP was so far off the actual number, he actually couldn't have been much more wrong than he was, right? I mean, it was 70,000, and the number came in, 250,000 or something? So he was miles away from the actual print, right? And this guy is a PhD economist who works for Citi in New York City, one of the biggest investment banks in the world. And he can't forecast better than a guy walking down the sidewalk in Chicago, okay? So let's really stay humble. So gold miners, we'll just review some charts here. Newmont reports earnings in 10 days. I wrote this on my Substack on October 3rd. I think it's a must read. I think Newmont's going to have a strong quarter. This one, I'm looking for an entry. Damn, did I miss the entry last Wednesday? Maybe, but no FOMO. We have no FOMO. But looking for an earnings entry, for an earnings trade into Newmont. I think the gold producers are going to have a pretty strong set of results here over the next several weeks. The mid-tier, so like Wesdome, Core, IM Gold, they got hit pretty good during this little correction in gold and silver. Looks like they tried to bottom there mid last week. Let's see, because look at this candlestick and IM Gold on Friday. Not considering gold had a strong session and IAG was red, not too convincing, right? So I think a lot of these charts are guilty until proven innocent in the mid tiers. And it's just interesting to see that significant divergence in performance between like a Newmont or a Kinross or a Barrick and the mid tiers, Core, Wesdome, IM Gold, right? So we're seeing some anxiety in the mid-tier space. That's interesting, and that's something to keep an eye on next week. Cameco, so I took a long trade on this on Friday morning. Great performance, up 1.7% on Friday. And the uranium trade, the nuclear energy trade, I mean, it's so compelling. It continues to be so compelling. I wish I had bought more in early September. But anyway, hindsight is 2020, but this is still looking like a fantastic trade. A tiny little bull flag, right? And in a real bull market, a strong bull market, you get these little 3 to 4 day consolidations, and then the uptrend will resume. Okay, Cameco, bullish chart. Albemarle, another bullish chart. Remember, the China stimulus trade benefits the lithium trade as well. They kind of all feed in to the same trade. So the lithium space was so oversold, so hated, so beaten down at the August low, and we're just barely 2 months into a rebound here in this sector. So I think there's more to go here, okay? And ALB, Albemarle, is one of the ways. It's one of the, I guess, lower risk ways to express a bullish view on the lithium trade. So I like this one. I like the way it's consolidating above that $100 par round number level, and still think stick with the China stimulus trade, right? Stick with it, long ALB. And then junior mining. So I'm going to go through a few different charts, a few different pieces of news from some juniors, and I'm just going to go ahead and tease it right now. So the final news release I'll look at is Hercules Metals. You can see the hat I'm wearing. And in the interest of not making this video too long, I'm going to make a separate video, and that will be on my premium Substack, delving in great detail into Hercules, my analysis, my thoughts, my observations from my interview with Hercules CEO Chris Paul from Friday, and that will be available on my premium Substack Monday, October 14th. So definitely subscribe to that. Get all my premium content. You won't miss anything. Okay, for $8 a month, you'll get everything I put out. As soon as I put it out, you won't miss any of my content. So no reason to not be a subscriber to that. So junior mining sector, the first observation is we're getting positive news flow. We're seeing the juices starting to flow. Capital is starting to unthaw. It's starting to move around. There's some animal spirits just beginning to pick up. Some deal flow. Core buys Silvercrest, right? There's some energy in the air, okay? B2 invests in Founders Metals, right? So this one really stood out to me on Friday morning. This is a fantastic deal for Founders. They get $12.1 million investment from large gold producer B2 Gold at market price, $2.75 a share, with no warrants, and a clause in this investment that caps B2 at, where was it, 9.9%. Yep. So Founders has rights, basically that B2 won't go above 9.9%. I guess they'd have to just make an offer for the whole company if they want to go above 9%. And technical collaboration on the Antino Gold project. So they get some of B2's knowledge, experience, and expertise at their project in Suriname. So I thought that was a fantastic deal. Founders has been one of the great performers of the last couple of years in the junior mining sector, and B2, and also basically the price, the fact that B2 is investing at near all-time high share price level in Founders just tells you, number one, how compelling the Antino project is to a major, and the fact that, look, when these big companies really like something, they're not that price sensitive. Like B2 could have invested in this at $1 a share last year, but they waited till they had a lot of data and they really understood what Founders, is onto here at, the Antino project. And they were not afraid to write a check at basically near all-time high prices. And I think that's a lesson for investors in this sector, that the big guys are not quite as price sensitive as you might think. It's more about the data, the quality of the model, and the fact that if it's super compelling, they'll pull the trigger on it. Ramp metals. So this is one we haven't heard about for a while. Remember, Saskatchewan gold discovery, blind gold discovery in Saskatchewan, in an area that's not known for gold. Ranger target, one drill hole into this one target area, Ranger, and they hit 73.55 grams per ton over 7.5 meters, a great intercept. But remember, it was a super small drill program. This company was looking for nickel and PGEs. They weren't looking for gold. They made a blind gold discovery. They didn't even understand what they hit, right? But now they got $5 million in the treasury. They got an investment from Eric Sprott, and they started their field program a little over a week ago, right? So they're gonna work up to optimize targeting for the phase 2 drill program, and then they'll go back out there and drill this thing, right? So it'd be probably about a $2 million budget. They've submitted a permit amendment to allow up to 5,000 meters of drilling. So this is going to be one to watch, because I believe this is going to be a highly anticipated follow-up program. Certainly some room for disappointment, but also room for following up on that great hit and proving out that this discovery is for real. So I'm intrigued by Ramp. The valuation is not high here. I mean, 27 million market cap. It was a little lower even about a week ago. Not expensive, right? I mean, obviously, if phase 2 doesn't hit any gold, then it could certainly see a haircut from this valuation. But when you think about a real gold discovery and what kind of market cap that can yield, I mean, easily $100 million, right? So there's certainly plenty of upside here for Ramp. Share structure is still very tight. It's still very much under the radar. That's one to keep an eye on. Aztec. So I visited Tombstone at the end of August, actually early September, and they just started drilling, right, at the Tombstone gold silver project there outside of the town of Tombstone, Arizona. A lot of history there, a lot to talk about there, regarding this project. I think that Aztec is very much under the radar. I don't think a lot of investors appreciate how high some of the grades are here. Gold and silver grades near surface can be pretty spectacular. Just look at their deck and look at some of the drilling they did in 2021, 2022, and 2023. I mean, multi-kilo silver hits is definitely not out of the question at Tombstone. And this program, this RC program that's underway, they're now on hole 3, by the way, so the drilling is moving pretty fast. I think there's going to be a lot of data. This is an important drill program for Aztec, and I think it could really open some people's eyes to the scale potential, right? It's not just this one open pit area at Tombstone, right? There is a large swath of ground for stepping out and really expanding this. They're focused on the west side area right now. That's certainly offering a lot of strike extent, a lot of potential strike extent to expand this and prove that the gold and silver, the high-grade gold and silver, is much more extensive than just this one portion of the open pit they've been focused on to date, right? So there's a lot more to say about Aztec, but we'll just leave that for later dates and future updates from the company. But I really think that this one is very much under the radar. And even after this little run-up that's happened, remember, like I was posting here in September as I was on the site visit. It was at 15 cents then, right? So it's basically gone up 50% in a little over a month, but it's still 27 million market cap, right? It's not that expensive yet, right? Same market cap as Ramp. Heliostar. So this was an eye-opening conversation I had with Charles Funk, not last week, the week before. I spoke to him because I was interested in Mexico and I was interested in getting an update on the Ana Paula project and this transformative acquisition that Heliostar did over the summer. And it was just one of those CEO interviews where it's like, I have to be long this, right? It's too good to not be long this. And then, obviously, look at the chart. I'm not the only one who was thinking that throughout September and early October. But then Mr. Eric Sprott comes in last week and cuts a $6 million check at market price, right? 60 cents a share. So he was not put off by the fact that the stock doubled and he was paying basically a 52-week high. No, he wanted in. He saw this compelling opportunity, the same one that I saw after my conversation with Charles Funk about 10 days ago. So Eric Sprott is back writing checks. And here, October 3rd, he wrote a $5 million check to Outcrop Silver, right? So another Latin American high-grade gold silver explorer. Mr. Sprott is opening his checkbook again. So I think that's very positive. Money is starting to flow into the sector. Some of the wins from the Cisco acquisition, obviously, I think that Sprott is taking some of his profits from Cisco and maybe a couple other acquisitions that he may have had a piece of, and he's sprinkling it around in some of his favorite ones. And he clearly focuses on the grade of the ore body, right? So Outcrop is really high-grade silver, and Heliostar at Ana Paula, you're talking about 8 to 10 gram per ton gold deposit, right? He clearly likes these high-grade gold and silver deposits, right? And that seems to be where he's been writing his checks here in the last few weeks. So final one before we get to Hercules is Peak.V, Sun Peak Metals. So looking on the company website, well, they haven't had much news flow. In fact, it's been about 3 months without a news release. So it's been super quiet. You can see the stock kind of trailed off, bottom in August. It's just beginning to move up again. But I think this is one that people should keep an eye on, because I met with Sun Peak at Beaver Creek, and the plan is for them to get back out there, start drilling again in November. Okay, I'm not going to go into this in great detail. You can look at the company's presentation, but it's in Ethiopia. The projects are in Ethiopia, and it's a VMS district in Ethiopia, right? It's a prolific area for VMS deposits, and I'm gonna make it super simple, and we're gonna go back to that slide I was on before, the Terraire licenses, and this slide. Anguta North is on the menu to be drilled here this year in the next few months, and this one is a very large gravity anomaly that's on trend with other VMS targets. You can see the trend. There's a trend here and there's a trend here, but this area is really high priority. I mean, as far as VMS targets go in terms of the signature in the gravity ground EM, so they're going to do ground EM here too. So that basically, let's see if we can get multiple data sets that all confirm the same targeting. But this gravity anomaly, 1,500 meters by 500 meters, right? So that is probably up there with as big as I've ever seen, okay? For a VMS deposit, that would be pretty gigantic, because usually these are pretty tight ore bodies. But it's one of these things that's just screaming to be drilled. Screaming to be drilled. You've got multiple data points all pointing to the same thing. You've got soil, you've got a soil anomaly here that's pretty prominent. You've got the geophysics, you've got the overall trend, the bigger picture setting, the location of this anomaly, and it's never been drilled, right? It's never been drilled. So this will get drilled, according to my conversation at Beaver Creek in September, and the stock is just starting to tick up after a relative quiet period, so keep an eye on peak. Yeah, so just I'll wrap up with Hercules. You can see I've got some more to say. I can scroll down here. There's a lot more I got, but I'll save that for the premium video. But the news release last week, there was a lot to unpack here. There's a lot to delve into. And the two main takeaways are just simply that they have stepped out over a wide area and they've outlined this 1,600 by 1,100 meter blanket of enrichment, hypogene enrichment. You can see it here. Very extensive blanket that, we've only got so many holes into it so far, but based upon the data we have so far, the grade in the enrichment blanket can vary from, let's say 0.4, 0.5% on the low end to 2% on the high end. The thickness can vary from 20 meters to 80 meters. Let's call it average of 40 to 50 meters. Let's call the average grade 1%, right? But it's a very extensive blanket. And what's most interesting about it is this high grade trend that the company has found and confirmed in holes 2305, 2401, 2408, and presumably based upon what's written in last week's news and my conversation with Chris Paul, 2412, potentially 2411. But there is a high grade trend here taking shape, and it's open to the north up here, and it's open to the south. In fact, they tried to drill a hole over here, 2409, and the core rig could not deal with the really tough ground, and they had to terminate it early. But this is something that is of high priority, major interest. How extensive is this trend? And certainly even in some of these areas, there's a lot of space to fill in some of these gaps and see if it thickens. Based upon the news release in this section, it appears to thicken to the south, to the southwest. It appears to thicken based upon this interpretation. Okay, so it looks like they hit it in 2412, but it might not have been quite as thick as it was in 2408 and 2305, right? And then we can see the white dots. They're going to drill one over here in the eastern fault block, and the next two holes, which I learned already underway, are here in what I'm calling the gap zone. So it's south of this hole 2321 from last year, in this gap zone. And what's really interesting is you can see that there's been no drilling over a very large area here in the southeast of this main focused area. The main focused area between Belmont, Grade Creek, there's been no drilling in this southeast corner. And that is where they are drilling now, and that is where they're honing in on what their latest vectoring, their latest interpretation, down plunge to the southeast in the gap zone, right? The hunt for the potassic core. Here's the high grade, enrichment corridor, and here is the gap zone, the new area of focus of deeper drilling, the new focus area for deeper drilling in the gap zone. All right. So I'm going to leave it there today. You can see got a lot more to delve into in the follow-up video. Thanks for tuning into this. I really appreciate everybody who views my content on a regular basis. Thanks for watching this. Again, please hit the like button, subscribe, share it on social media, and have a great weekend and enjoy your Thanksgiving if you're up in Canada. Have a powerful trading week.